Welcome back to Latin 4. We are continuing our study of the subjunctive in lesson 104. And we're going to learn the passive voice today. So, learn the subjunctive passive of the modal verbs. See Appendix 1, page 293. He means page 294. That's where the subjunctive passive is shown, page 294. It's formed it's formed just like the active voice is formed, except you're going to be using the passive endings and the passive stems. So, for example, the present subjunctive active was laudem, and so it was laude plus mustis und. This, you're using the same vowel from we fear a liar. So in the first conjugation, you're using the E, but you're just adding the passive endings, the passive personal endings. Ar, ris, tur, mur, mini, intur. So for moniar, again, you're using we fear a liar, second conjugation, second word, fear. So the vowel is EA, ar, ris, tur, mur, mini, intur. Same all the way through the present with the other conjugations. The imperfect, again, you're using the present active, you're using the form of the present active infinitive, and you're just adding the passive endings. Ar, ris, tur, mur, mini, intur. All the way across, piece of cake. Now the perfect subjunctive passive, remember you were basing that on the perfect passive stem. Well, the perfect passive, you remember, was laudatus sum. So here it's laudatus sim, sis, sit, simus, situs, sint, because those are the forms of the subjunctive forms of the verb to be. So he should also tell you need to learn those, the subjunctive of the verb to be. And that is on page 298. Page 298, you need to learn the subjunctive forms of the verb to be. And then on page 295, there's the pluperfect subjunctive passive. It's formed in the same way as the active. So it's the perfect passive infinitive plus the personal endings. So the perfect passive infinitive is laudatus sum, laudatus esse. So the pluperfect subjunctive passive is going to be that perfect passive infinitive, laudatus esse, plus the endings, st, mus, tis, nt. Piece of cake, right? Piece of cake. A lot of forms, but you want to remember simply how each one of those is formed. If you remember how it's formed, you'll always be able to reproduce it, and you'll always be able to recognize it. So spend some time making some flashcards for each one of these, but also write on that flashcard how you're forming it. So write for the imperfect subjunctive passive, write present infinitive plus passive endings. And then write your form. So you're remembering how to form it. There's a plan for how these things are formed. Now, however, we are ready for some translations that include the subjunctive mood. So go ahead and work through those on page 205, and then we'll go through them. Oh, and I should say, he instructs you on page 204 at the bottom and page 205 at the top to do a synopsis, and a synopsis is indeed a very handy way to study. What that means is you pick a person and a number, so for example, third person singular, and then you write every tense, mood, and voice combination for third person singular. So you write the present indicative active. Third person singular of laudo is laudat. Right? Then what's the third person singular present indicative passive? Right? Laudatur. What's the third person singular present subjunctive active of laudo? Laudet. And passive, right? Laudator. And you can figure that out. It's just a great way to test yourself and to study, to make sure you know how to form each one of the tenses. Well, on to our translations. Number 1. Cum liber tuus amissa sit, post scolum dimissum, manera debes. All right. So cum is not only a word meaning with, it's also a conjunction that is followed by the subjunctive mood. So when cum is followed by the subjunctive, it can mean since, or while, or although. Just like all the ways we learn to translate the ablative absolute, cum can do that with the subjunctive. So here he suggests since. Since amissa sit liber tuus, since your book has been lost. Amissa sit is the passive voice, perfect tense, third person singular. Since your book has been lost, post scolum dimissum, after school is dismissed, you must remain. Debes manera, you must remain. Debes, remember, is completed with an infinitive. You ought to remain. 2. Qui puer negligentia praestat. Qui puer negligentia praestat. Who outdoes, who exceeds a boy, or excuse me, it's not quis, it's qui. Which boy exceeds in negligence? So that's section 4 there. The ablative is used to show that in respect to which anything is or is done. So virtute praestabant, they surpassed in courage. That is in respect to courage. So which boy exceeds in negligence? Sentence 3. Ego credo Gulielmum negligentia praestare, cum liber eius semper maculatus est. So, ego credo, I believe that, and here again, after in a dependent clause or the clause of thinking, saying, etc., you will often have an infinitive with an accusative as its subject. Ego, I believe that William exceeds, praestare. I believe that William exceeds in negligence. Why? Cum liber eius semper maculatus est. Since his book is always dirty. 4. Cum domus magistri combureretur constituimus in scolum non ire, sed contra incendium pugnare. All right. Cum, since, cum, I notice that it's followed by something in the subjunctive. Combureretur. It's easy to recognize because it looks like an infinitive with a personal ending stuck on the back. So that tells me that it's either imperfect or perfect, and this just looks like the present infinitive plus the third person singular passive ending. So this is an imperfect subjunctive. Since the master's house was burning, since the teacher's house was burning, constituimus, we decided not to go to school. Is that right? Is that what constitu means? Decided? Again, they're not giving us vocabulary now, so sometimes we have to look up these things for ourselves. Constituo, draw up. Yeah, play. We decided. We drew up. We decided not to go to school, sed contra incendium pugnare, but to fight against the fire, to fight against the blaze. Okay. Very good. That is it for lesson 104.